The wind howled through the dusty streets of Steins Pass, New Mexico, as Katherine Nichols clutched her threadbare shawl around her shoulders, watching another cowboy stumble through the swinging doors of the Iron Horse Saloon. 2 years of servitude in this God-forsaken place had worn her down to nothing but hollow dreams and calloused hands, and the thought of escaping had never seemed more impossible than it did today. The year was 1885, and Steins Pass had grown from a humble mining settlement to a bustling stop on the Southern Pacific Railroad. The promise of gold and silver in the surrounding hills had drawn men from all corners of the country, and where there were miners, there were saloons. The Iron Horse was the largest and most profitable establishment in town, owned by the ruthless Vernon Blackwell, a man whose iron grip extended far beyond the walls of his business. Catherine Kate to the regulars had arrived in Steins Pass as a wide-eyed 18-year-old, fleeing the remnants of a broken family in St. Louis after her parents succumbed to influenza. The advertisement she'd answered had promised respectable work as a serving girl with room and board included. What she hadn't understood was that Vernon Blackwell considered room and board to be an advancing debt, one that seemed to grow rather than diminish no matter how many hours she worked. "Table 3 needs more whiskey," Vernon barked, his meaty hand gripping Kate's arm as she passed. And put on a smile. "You're scaring away the paying customers." "Yes, Mr. Blackwell," Kate replied, forcing her lips to curve upward even as revulsion crawled through her. At 20, she had already spent more of her life in this saloon than she cared to remember. The Iron Horse buzzed with activity as miners fresh from their claims sought to drown their disappointments or celebrate their finds. A mediocre piano player pounded out popular tunes in the corner, competing with the cacophony of drunken voices, clinking glasses, and occasional outbursts of laughter or anger. Kate weaved through the crowd with practiced ease, balancing a tray of whiskey glasses. The patrons' eyes followed her movements, some with respect, others with intentions that made her skin crawl. She'd learned to deflect the worst advances with a sharp word or a well-placed elbow, but Vernon never took kindly to her rejecting paying customers too forcefully. "When you gonna dance for us again, Kate?" called a red-faced miner as she passed. "Been savin' my dust just for you." "The dancing girls will be on at 8, she replied with a rehearsed smile. Though she served drinks and occasionally sang, Kate had steadfastly refused to join the dancing girls despite Vernon's insistence. It was one of the few boundaries she had managed to maintain, though it cost her dearly in other ways. As the afternoon wore on, Kate's mind drifted to the letter hidden beneath her thin mattress upstairs. Her cousin in San Francisco had finally responded to her desperate plea, offering a place to stay and the promise of respectable work in a dressmaker's shop. For the first time in years, hope flickered within her heart. During a rare quiet moment, Kate approached Vernon at the bar, wiping her hands nervously on her apron. "Mr. Blackwell, I'd like to discuss my situation," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Vernon barely glanced up from his ledger. "What situation would that be, girl?" "My debt," Kate said. "I've been keeping my own records, and by my calculations, I've more than worked off what I owe you. I'd like to collect my wages and move on." Vernon's pen stilled, and when he looked up, his eyes were cold. "Your calculations," he laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "Let me show you mine." He flipped the ledger around, pointing to a column of numbers that made Kate's stomach drop. According to his books, she still owed him nearly $300, an impossible sum. "This isn't right," Kate protested. "I've worked every day for 2 years. I haven't taken a single day off, even when ill. There's no way I could still owe you this much." Room and board don't come cheap, Vernon said smoothly. Neither does that dress you're wearing or the shoes on your feet. Interest accumulates, Catherine. That's business. This isn't business, Kate hissed. It's imprisonment. I won't stay here forever paying a debt that mysteriously never decreases. Vernon's face hardened as he slammed the ledger shut. You'll stay until I say otherwise, unless you've got $300 hidden in that room of yours. Kate's silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, Vernon said, smirking. Now get back to work before I add insubordination to your tab. Kate turned away, blinking back tears of frustration. She had saved nearly $40 over the years, hiding coins and small bills whenever possible, but it wasn't nearly enough. The stagecoach to Tucson alone would take almost half her savings. As the evening progressed, the saloon filled to capacity. A group of cowboys fresh from a cattle drive had arrived, their pockets heavy with pay and their throats dry from the trail. They brought with them a boisterous energy that changed the atmosphere of the room, and Kate found herself rushing to keep up with drink orders. It was nearing midnight when Kate, exhausted and disheartened, noticed a stranger enter through the swinging doors. Unlike the rowdy cowboys or dust-covered miners, this man moved with a quiet confidence that commanded attention without demanding it. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore a long duster over simple trail clothes, a well-worn Stetson pulled low over his eyes. The stranger took a seat at the far end of the bar, and Kate approached him with her serving tray balanced on one hip. "What can I get you?" she asked, studying his face. His features were strong and weathered by sun and wind, but his eyes were startlingly gentle. "Whiskey," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "And some information if you're willing to provide it." "Information's not on the menu," Kate replied cautiously. The man smiled, revealing a dimple in his right cheek. "I'm looking for someone, a man named Elliot James. I heard he might frequent this establishment." Kate tensed. Elliot James was one of Vernon's business partners, a man with a reputation for cruelty who visited the saloon whenever he was in town. "I don't know who you're talking about," she lied. The stranger observed her carefully, then nodded. "I understand. Thank you anyway, miss." "Catherine," she offered, surprising herself, "but everyone calls me Kate." "Kate," he repeated as if testing the name. "I'm William James." Kate's eyes widened slightly. "James, any relation to the man you're looking for?" William's expression darkened. "He's my brother, but we're not exactly on speaking terms." Before Kate could respond, Vernon's voice boomed from behind her. "Catherine, table 5 is waiting." Kate jumped, nearly dropping her tray. "I have to go," she murmured to William. As she turned, Vernon caught her by the elbow, his grip painfully tight. "Who's your new friend?" he demanded, glancing suspiciously at William. "Just a customer asking for directions," Kate replied, trying to pull away. Vernon's eyes narrowed. "Well, direct him to pay up and move along if he's not drinking. We don't need loiterers taking up space." Kate nodded and hurried to table 5, feeling William's gaze follow her across the room. Throughout the evening, she found herself stealing glances in his direction. Unlike the other patrons who grew louder and more raucous as they drank, William remained alert and observant, nursing the same glass of whiskey for over an hour. As the night wore on and the crowd began to thin, Kate found herself cornered by 3 drunken cowboys near the back stairs. Their leader, a burly man with a handlebar mustache, leaned in too close, his breath hot and sour with alcohol. "How about some private entertainment, sweetheart?" he slurred, reaching for her waist. Kate twisted away, her back pressed against the wall. "I'm not that kind of girl." "The brothel's 2 doors down if that's what you're looking for." The cowboy's face darkened. "Vernon said you'd be accommodating for the right price. I've got gold right here." He patted his pocket, fury and betrayal washed over Kate. So this was Vernon's latest scheme to increase her debt, selling her services without her knowledge. "Vernon lied," she said coldly. "Now excuse me." As she tried to pass, the cowboy grabbed her arm, yanking her against his chest. "Don't be difficult now," Kate struggled, panic rising in her throat. The other patrons either didn't notice or pretended not to, and Vernon was nowhere in sight, likely by design. She was on her own, as always. Then suddenly, the pressure on her arm vanished. William stood beside her, his hand clamped firmly around the cowboy's wrist. "The lady declined," William said quietly, but there was steel in his voice. "I suggest you respect her wishes." The cowboy sputtered, alcohol-fueled courage warring with the instinct for self-preservation as he took in William's imposing frame. "This ain't your business, stranger." "I'm making it my business," William replied, releasing the man's wrist with a warning squeeze. For a tense moment, Kate thought the situation would escalate into violence. Then the cowboy spat on the floor and backed away, muttering obscenities as he rejoined his friends. "Are you all right?" William asked once they were alone. Kate nodded, though her hands trembled. "Thank you, you didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," William said simply. His eyes searched her face. "Has this happened before?" Kate looked away. "Vernon's creative about finding ways to keep me in debt." "This is a new low, even for him." William's expression hardened. "How long has he kept you here?" 2 years, Kate admitted. "I came here looking for honest work, but the debt keeps growing no matter how much I work. I've been saving to leave, but—" She trailed off, suddenly wary of revealing too much to a stranger, regardless of his kindness. William seemed to sense her hesitation. "Sometimes the most honorable path isn't the legal one," he said cryptically. "Especially when the law itself is corrupt." Before Kate could ask what he meant, Vernon emerged from his office, his gaze immediately locking onto her and William. He marched toward them, bristling with authority. "It's closing time," he announced, addressing William but staring at Kate. "Pay your tab and be on your way." William didn't move. "I was just having a conversation with Miss Katherine here." "My employees aren't paid to converse," Vernon said coldly, "and Katherine has rooms to clean before she can retire." "Actually," Kate interjected, emboldened by William's presence, "I've worked well past my scheduled hours today. According to your own rules, I'm entitled to rest now." Vernon's face flushed with anger. "You'll work until I say you're done. Now get upstairs and clean those rooms." "No," Kate said, the word hanging in the air like a gunshot. "I've cleaned every room in this place twice over. I'm going to bed." Vernon stepped forward, his hand raised. "You ungrateful little—" William moved between them, his stance casual but his meaning clear. "It's late," he said evenly. "Perhaps we should all get some rest and continue this discussion in the morning." Vernon's gaze shifted between them, calculation replacing his initial fury. "Fine," he said at last. "Katherine will discuss your insubordination tomorrow." He turned to William. "As for you, we're closed. Don't come back." With that, Vernon stalked away, barking orders at the remaining staff to clear the saloon. "Thank you again," Kate whispered to William. "But you should go. He doesn't make idle threats." William nodded slowly. "I'll leave for now, but Kate—" He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pressed something into her hand. "If you're serious about leaving, meet me at dawn behind the livery stable. I may be able to help." Kate looked down at a small brass key in her palm. "What's this?" "Insurance," William said cryptically. "Keep it safe." Before she could question him further, William tipped his hat and strode toward the door, his tall figure silhouetted against the dimly lit street beyond. Kate climbed the narrow stairs to her small room in the attic, her mind whirling with possibilities. The key felt heavy in her pocket. a tangible reminder that perhaps her fortunes were about to change. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a life beyond the walls of the Iron Horse, a life of freedom and perhaps even happiness. As she prepared for bed, Kate made a decision. Tomorrow, she would meet William and accept whatever help he offered. The risk couldn't possibly be greater than the certainty of remaining Vernon's prisoner forever. Dawn broke over Stein's Pass, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that belied the harshness of the desert landscape. Kate had barely slept, alternating between planning her escape and doubting her courage to actually leave. She had packed her meager belongings, a few articles of clothing, her mother's tarnished locket, the letter from her cousin, and her precious savings into a small carpet bag. Moving silently through the sleeping saloon, Kate paused at Vernon's office. The door was locked, but she had swiped the spare key months ago, making a wax impression and returning the original before Vernon noticed its absence. The local blacksmith's apprentice had crafted her a copy in exchange for free drinks smuggled from the bar. Inside the office, Kate moved directly to the ledger. She wanted proof of Vernon's deceit, something to show the sheriff if necessary. As she flipped through the pages, her suspicions were confirmed. Vernon kept two sets of books, one showing her ever-increasing debt, the other recording the actual profits from her labor. According to the true ledger, Vernon owed her nearly $500 in unpaid wages. A sound from the hallway startled her. Kate quickly closed the ledger and slipped behind the door just as it swung open. Vernon entered, still in his nightclothes, his hair disheveled from sleep. He went straight to the safe hidden behind a painting of a reclining woman, turning the dial with practiced ease. Kate held her breath, pressing herself against the wall. Vernon removed several stacks of bills from the safe, counting them before returning most to the safe. He pocketed a smaller amount, then relocked the safe and left, thankfully without noticing her presence. Once his footsteps faded, Kate exhaled shakily. The contents of that safe represented her stolen wages and those of the other girls, enough money to buy her freedom 10 times over. She considered trying to open it, but realized she didn't know the combination and couldn't risk being caught. Instead, she tore the damning pages from the ledger and tucked them into her bodice. It wasn't the justice she deserved, but it was evidence that might protect her later. The livery stable sat at the edge of town, the smell of hay and horses carrying on the morning breeze. Kate approached cautiously, her carpetbag clutched in one hand, constantly glancing over her shoulder for signs of pursuit. The town was beginning to stir, but few people paid attention to a serving girl out on an early errand. "You came," William's voice startled her as he stepped out from behind the stable. He wore the same clothes as the previous night, but his face looked refreshed, his eyes clear and alert. "I didn't have much choice," Kate admitted. "It was this or spend another year paying off a fictional debt." William nodded grimly. "I figured as much. Vernon Blackwell has quite a reputation along the border towns. He's not the first to use debt to keep pretty young women in servitude." "Do you make a habit of rescuing indebted saloon girls, Mr. James?" Kate asked, a touch of suspicion creeping into her voice despite her gratitude. William smiled, that same dimple appearing in his cheek. "No, Miss Nichols. My business in Stein's Pass concerns my brother. Your situation is an unexpected complication." "A complication you could have ignored," Kate pointed out. "Perhaps," William conceded, "but my mother raised me better than that." He glanced around, suddenly serious. "We should move quickly. I have horses saddled behind the stable." Kate followed him around the building where 2 horses waited, a sturdy bay gelding and a dappled gray mare. "Where are we going?" she asked, realizing she hadn't considered this crucial detail. "First, away from here," William replied, securing her carpetbag to the gray mare's saddle. Then to Tucson, where you can catch a train to San Francisco if that's still your plan. Kate blinked in surprise. How did you know about San Francisco? William looked slightly embarrassed. You talk in your sleep. The serving girl in the room next to yours mentioned it when I inquired about you this morning. You've been busy, Kate said, both impressed and wary. Information is valuable in my line of work, William replied, helping her mount the mare. Are you comfortable on horseback? Comfortable enough, Kate said, adjusting her skirts. What exactly is your line of work, Mr. James? William swung himself into the saddle with practiced ease. Let's say I work on the right side of the law, even when the law itself has its shortcomings. Before Kate could press further, the sound of angry voices carried from the direction of the saloon. He's discovered I'm gone, she whispered, panic rising in her chest. Then we ride, William said, nudging his horse forward. Stay close and follow my lead. They set off at a trot, keeping to the back streets of Steins Pass before breaking into open country. Kate glanced back at the town shrinking behind them, half expecting to see Vernon and his men in pursuit. The vastness of the New Mexico landscape stretched before them, beautiful and intimidating in equal measure. As they rode, William explained more about his purpose in Steins Pass. His brother Elliot had once been a lawman like himself, but had fallen in with criminals after their father's death. Elliot had been implicated in a string of stagecoach robberies across the territory, and William had tracked him to Steins Pass, hoping to convince him to surrender before federal marshals caught up with him. Vernon Blackwell is my brother's business partner, William revealed as they paused to rest the horses near a small stream. They're using the saloon to fence stolen goods and launder money from the robberies. That explains the safe in Vernon's office, Kate said. I saw him counting money this morning before we left. William's interest sharpened. Safe? What did it look like? Kate described the hidden safe and its location, watching as William's expression grew thoughtful. That might be where they're keeping the proceeds from the last robbery. A family was killed, Kate, a father, mother, and their 10-year-old son. Horror washed over Kate. I knew Vernon was dishonest, but I never imagined he was involved in murder. My brother wouldn't have been either once, William said quietly. People change, sometimes for the worse. They continued riding through the morning, the sun climbing higher in the sky, baking the rocky terrain. William set a steady pace, occasionally checking for signs of pursuit, but the trail behind them remained empty. Around noon, they reached a small line shack nestled in a grove of scrubby trees beside a narrow creek. We'll rest here, William decided. The horses need water and we should eat. The shack was abandoned but intact, with a rough table, 2 stools, and a narrow cot covered in a dusty blanket. William unpacked provisions, jerky, hardtack, and dried apples while Kate filled their canteens from the creek. As they ate in companionable silence, Kate studied William more carefully. He was handsome in a rugged way, with intelligent eyes and strong hands that moved with purpose. There was a gentleness about him that contrasted with his obvious strength, and Kate found herself drawn to his quiet confidence. "Why did you become a lawman?" she asked, breaking the silence. William considered the question. "My father was a sheriff in a small town in Colorado. He taught me that true strength comes from protecting those who can't protect themselves." He smiled wryly. Elliot never quite embraced that philosophy. He always wanted more than our simple life could provide. "And you," Kate prompted, "don't you want more?" "I want justice," William replied simply. "The rest is just details." Kate touched her bodice where the stolen ledger pages were hidden. "I want justice too," she said softly. "For myself and the other girls Vernon has trapped over the years." William's eyes met hers. Then perhaps our paths crossing wasn't just chance after all. A connection sparked between them, an understanding that went beyond words. Kate felt a flush rise to her cheeks and looked away first, suddenly aware of how alone they were. "We should keep moving," William said, clearing his throat. "Vernon won't give up easily, especially now that he knows you've taken something from him." Kate startled. "How did you know I took something?" William's smile returned. "Because I would have done the same in your position. And because you keep touching your bodice like you're checking that something's still there." Caught, Kate laughed despite herself. "It's evidence of his fraud, pages from his true ledger showing what he actually owes me and the others." "Smart," William acknowledged. "That could be useful if we need to involve the territorial authorities." They packed up and continued their journey, the terrain growing more rugged as they followed game trails to avoid the main roads. William explained they would circle back toward Tucson, approaching from the west to avoid anyone watching the direct route from Steins Pass. As afternoon faded toward evening, they made camp in a sheltered canyon. William built a small fire while Kate arranged their bedrolls on opposite sides of the flames. The domesticity of the tasks felt strangely intimate after years of serving others in the saloon. "Tell me about San Francisco," William said as they sat beside the fire, the stars beginning to appear overhead. "What's waiting for you there?" "My cousin Margaret runs a boarding house for working women," Kate explained. "She's arranged a position for me at a dressmaker's shop. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work." "You'll be good at it," William said with confidence. "How would you know?" Kate asked, amused. William nodded toward her worn dress. "I noticed the adjustments you've made to your clothes, clever stitching to make something old look presentable. You have skilled hands." The compliment warmed Kate more than the fire. "Thank you. I've always enjoyed sewing. My mother taught me when I was young." "What happened to your parents?" William asked gently. Kate stared into the flames. "Influenza took them both within a week of each other. I was 18 with no other family nearby and no money. The advertisement for the Iron Horse seemed like Providence at the time." She laughed bitterly. "I was so naive." "You were young and alone," William corrected. "Vernon Blackwell is the one who should be ashamed, not you." The genuine understanding in his voice broke something open inside Kate. 2 years of contained emotions, fear, anger, humiliation, and loneliness suddenly overwhelmed her. To her mortification, tears filled her eyes and spilled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she said, trying to turn away. "Don't be," William said, moving to sit beside her. Hesitantly, he placed an arm around her shoulders. "You've been stronger than most men I know, surviving what you have." Kate leaned into his warmth, allowing herself this moment of comfort. "I'm not sure what I would have done if you hadn't come into the saloon last night. You would have found another way," William said with certainty. "You're not the type to accept captivity forever." They sat in silence as the fire crackled and night creatures began their chorus around them. Kate gradually became aware of William's heartbeat, steady and strong where her head rested against his chest. The comfort of human contact after so long without genuine kindness was overwhelming. When she finally pulled away, embarrassed by her display of emotion, William's hand lingered briefly on hers. "Try to get some rest," he said softly. "We have a long ride ahead tomorrow." Kate nodded, retreating to her bedroll. Despite her exhaustion, sleep came slowly as she processed the dramatic change in her circumstances. 24 hours ago, she had been serving whiskey to drunken cowboys. Now she was camped beneath the stars with a man who had risked his own safety to help her escape. Life could change in an instant, it seemed. Her last thought before drifting off was that despite the uncertainty ahead, for the first time in years, she felt truly free. The sound of approaching horses jolted Kate awake before dawn. William was already on his feet, rifle in hand, his expression grim. "Stay low," he whispered, gesturing toward a cluster of boulders. "And take this." He pressed a small revolver into her hand. "Is it Vernon?" Kate asked, heart pounding as she scrambled for cover. William nodded. "3 riders, coming fast. He must have guessed our direction." "How?" Kate asked, checking that the revolver was loaded as William had shown her the previous day. "Someone in town must have seen us leave together," William said. "Or perhaps he knows these hills better than I estimated." He positioned himself behind a fallen tree, rifle aimed at the canyon entrance. "If anything happens to me, keep riding west. Follow the North Star at night." "Nothing's going to happen to you," Kate insisted, though fear knotted her stomach. The riders appeared at the mouth of the canyon just as the first light of dawn touched the sky. Vernon led the way, his bulk unmistakable even at a distance, flanked by 2 men Kate recognized as regulars from the Saloon, both known for their quick tempers and quicker trigger fingers. "Katherine." Vernon's voice boomed across the canyon. "I know you're here. Come out now and I might forgive your theft." Kate remained silent, gripping the revolver with sweaty hands. William caught her eye and shook his head slightly, indicating she should stay hidden. "The woman's not your property, Blackwell," William called out. "She's paid any debt she might have owed you many times over." Vernon's laugh was ugly. "James, I should have known you'd be involved. Your brother warned me you might cause trouble." William's jaw tightened at the mention of Elliot. "Where is my brother now, Vernon?" "Somewhere you won't find him," Vernon replied. "Now send the girl out with what she stole from me, or things will get unpleasant." "I didn't steal anything that wasn't already mine," Kate shouted, unable to contain herself despite William's warning glance. Vernon dismounted, signaling his men to spread out. "Those ledger pages are my property, girl, and so are you until I say otherwise." "The law might disagree," William called back, "especially when they see evidence of your fraud." Vernon's face darkened. "There's no law in Stein's Pass that doesn't answer to me," he snarled. "Last chance, Katherine. Come out now." When neither Kate nor William responded, Vernon nodded to his men. "Burn them out," he ordered. The hired guns began firing into the canyon, bullets ricocheting off rocks and kicking up dust around Kate's position. William returned fire, his shots measured and precise. Kate heard a cry of pain as one of Vernon's men clutched his shoulder and tumbled from his horse. "Stay down." William shouted to her over the gunfire. Kate pressed herself against the boulder, heart hammering. The second gunman had dismounted and was working his way around the perimeter of the canyon, trying to flank their position. Without thinking, Kate raised the revolver and fired in his direction. The shot went wide, but it forced the man to dive for cover. "Not bad," William called, flashing her a quick grin despite the gravity of their situation. The exchange of gunfire continued for several minutes, neither side gaining a clear advantage. Then suddenly, the shooting stopped. Kate peered cautiously around the boulder to see Vernon signaling his remaining man to hold fire. "James," Vernon called, "let's be reasonable. I'm a businessman. Name your price for the girl and the papers." William's reply was immediate. "She's not for sale, Blackwell, neither is justice." "Fine," Vernon said, his tone suddenly conversational. "Then perhaps you'd be interested in a trade. The girl for information about your brother." Kate saw William hesitate, conflict evident in his expression. "What information?" he finally asked. Vernon smiled, sensing advantage. "Elliot's in trouble, deeper than you know. The Pinkertons are closing in and he's desperate. I know where he's heading and who he's meeting." "And you'd sell out your partner?" William asked skeptically. "For the right price," Vernon confirmed. "Self-preservation is good business." Kate's mind raced. Vernon was clearly lying, trying to lure William into the open. She caught William's eye and shook her head minutely, hoping he would understand her warning. William seemed to read her thoughts. "Tell me what you know first," he called to Vernon. "Then we'll discuss terms." Vernon's face contorted with frustration. "Enough games. Either send the girl out with my property, or we'll finish this the hard way." The standoff resumed with renewed gunfire. Kate reloaded the revolver with cartridges William had given her, her hands steadier now. She might have escaped one prison only to die in this canyon, but at least she would die fighting for her freedom. The gunfight intensified as Vernon and his remaining man advanced, using the terrain for cover. William's ammunition was running low, Kate could tell by his increasingly measured shots. Their situation was growing desperate. Then, just as Vernon and his man prepared for a final rush, new gunfire erupted from the canyon entrance. Vernon's remaining gunmen fell immediately, and Vernon himself dove behind a boulder, cursing loudly. "William," a new voice called. "Are you hit?" Kate saw shock register on William's face. "Elliot," he called back incredulously. A man appeared at the canyon entrance, leading 3 riders who quickly took up positions surrounding Vernon. The family resemblance between William and the newcomer was unmistakable, the same strong jaw and broad shoulders, though Elliot's face was harder, marked by experiences that had clearly diverged from his brother's. "Drop your weapon, Vernon," Elliot commanded. "It's over." Vernon, realizing he was outmatched, slowly placed his gun on the ground, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. "You double-crossing snake," he spat at Elliot. "We had a deal. Deals changed," Elliot replied coldly. He glanced toward William, who had cautiously emerged from cover. "You all right, little brother?" William approached slowly, rifle still at the ready. "What are you doing here, Elliot?" "Saving your hide, apparently," Elliot replied with a thin smile, "and settling some accounts of my own." He nodded toward Vernon. "He's been skimming profits for months." "Thought I wouldn't notice." Kate emerged from her hiding place, keeping the revolver trained on Vernon. The tension between the brothers was palpable, years of conflict and unspoken words hanging in the air between them. "The girl coming with you?" Elliot asked William, eyeing Kate with curiosity. "Her name is Katherine," William said. "And yes, I'm helping her get to Tucson." Elliot nodded. "Then you'd better hurry. Vernon here sent a telegram to the marshal in Tucson before riding out, claimed you kidnapped one of his girls and stole from him." William's expression darkened. "You knew about this?" he asked Vernon. "About what he was doing to Katherine and the other girls," Vernon sneered. "Business is business. The girls knew what they were signing up for." "No, we didn't," Kate interjected fiercely. "We were tricked and trapped." She approached Vernon, anger overriding her fear. "And now everyone will know. I have proof of your fraud right here." She patted her bodice where the ledger pages were hidden. Vernon lunged toward her suddenly, but William was faster. His fist connected with Vernon's jaw with a sickening crack, sending the larger man sprawling in the dust. "That's for Katherine," William said coldly. "And for every other woman you've exploited." Elliot observed the exchange with raised eyebrows. "You always did have a soft spot for damsels in distress," he remarked to William. "She's hardly a damsel," William replied, glancing at Kate with unmistakable admiration. "She saved herself. I just provided the horse." Elliot's men bound Vernon and the wounded gunman, while Elliot himself approached William more cautiously. "We need to talk," he said in a lower voice, "about what happened in Tombstone." William's expression hardened. "Those people were innocent, Elliot. A child died." "I wasn't there," Elliot insisted. "That was Jenkins and Parsons. I never agreed to harming passengers." Kate watched the exchange silently, sensing the complicated history between the brothers. Despite his criminal activities, There seemed to be a core of honor in Elliot that resonated with his brother's more lawful path. "What happens now?" William asked finally. Elliot glanced at Vernon. "I'm taking him to Mexico. He owes some dangerous people there a lot of money. They'll ensure he never troubles anyone again." "That's not justice," William protested. "It's frontier justice," Elliot countered. "More than he deserves, and it keeps Catherine's name out of it. No trial, no testimony, no reputation ruined." Kate stepped forward. "I appreciate the thought, but I'm not afraid to testify." "You should be," Elliot said bluntly. "Vernon has friends in high places. Judges, mayors, even a territorial governor owes him favors. Your word against his wouldn't count for much." William looked torn, his commitment to legal justice warring with the practical reality of frontier law. "What about the ledger pages?" Kate asked. "They prove what he's done." "Documents can disappear," Elliot said, "especially when powerful men want them to." William finally nodded, though the decision clearly cost him. "Take him then. But this doesn't change things between us, Elliot. You're still on the wrong side of the law." Elliot smiled sadly. "I know. But I'd rather my little brother remember me for saving his life than for swinging from a gallows." He extended his hand. "Take care of yourself, Will, and her too, if she'll let you." William hesitated, then clasped his brother's hand. "You could come with us," he offered. "Start fresh." Elliot shook his head. "Too late for that, but it's not too late for you." He glanced meaningfully at Kate. The brothers embraced briefly, a silent communication passing between them that spoke of shared childhood and divergent paths. Then Elliot stepped back. "You'd better ride hard for the next few hours. I'll lead any pursuit in the wrong direction." "Thank you," Kate said sincerely. Elliot tipped his hat to her. "Take care of him, Miss Katherine. He pretends to be invincible, but he's not." With that, Elliot and his men departed, taking Vernon and the wounded gunman with them. Kate and William stood in silence as the sound of hoofbeats faded into the distance. "Will we see him again?" Kate asked quietly. William's eyes remained fixed on the canyon entrance. "I don't know. Elliot's always been good at disappearing when he needs to." They broke camp quickly, erasing all signs of their presence before continuing their journey west. As they rode, William explained more about his complicated relationship with his brother, how Elliot had started small, stealing cattle and robbing isolated homesteads, before graduating to stagecoach robbery and worse. "He always had a code, though," William said. "If he says he wasn't involved in the killings, I believe him." "Even though he's an outlaw?" Kate asked. William smiled ruefully. "Family's complicated. Elliot taught me to ride and shoot. He looked after me when our mother died. It's hard to reconcile that brother with the wanted posters." They made good time throughout the day, the terrain gradually changing as they approached the border with Arizona territory. The desert landscape was beautiful in its stark simplicity, and Kate found herself appreciating the vastness of the open country after years confined within the saloon's walls. By nightfall, they had crossed into Arizona, making camp in a small arroyo where a trickle of water supported a stand of cottonwoods. The evening air was cool, and William built a fire while Kate prepared a simple meal from their provisions. "We should reach Tucson in 2 days," William said as they ate. "From there, you can catch the train to San Francisco." Kate nodded, suddenly aware that their journey together was nearing its end. The thought brought an unexpected pang of regret. In the short time she'd known William, she'd come to admire his integrity and gentle strength. More than that, she'd begun to feel a connection that went beyond gratitude for his help. "What will you do?" she asked. "After Tucson," William poked at the fire thoughtfully. "Return to my post, I suppose. There's always work for a U.S. Marshal in these territories." Kate's surprise must have shown on her face, for William smiled. "Did I not mention that? I thought you knew." "You said you were a lawman," Kate replied. "I didn't realize you meant a federal marshal." "Does it matter?" William asked, suddenly uncertain. Kate considered this. "No," she said finally. "It doesn't change who you are." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness deepened around them. The fire cast golden light across William's features, highlighting the strong line of his jaw and the warmth in his eyes when he looked at her. "Katherine," he began hesitantly, "when we reach Tucson—" A distant sound interrupted him, the unmistakable rhythm of approaching horses. William was immediately alert, extinguishing the fire with dirt while Kate gathered their essential belongings. "Could it be Vernon's men?" Kate whispered. William shook his head. "Too many horses. Might be a posse from Stein's Pass, or worse, the men Elliot warned about from Tucson." They quickly saddled their horses and led them deeper into the arroyo, away from their camp. The sound of voices grew louder, and torchlight flickered at the entrance to the arroyo. "There's a trail leading up the backside," William whispered, pointing to a narrow path that wound up the steep embankment. "It's too rocky for horses, but we can make it on foot." They abandoned their mounts with regret, knowing the animals would likely be captured but unwilling to risk being trapped in the arroyo. William helped Kate up the treacherous path, loose rocks sliding beneath their feet as they climbed in near darkness. From the top of the ridge, they could see a group of about 10 men searching their abandoned camp. The leader was a tall figure wearing a marshal's badge that caught the torchlight. "Marshal Hayes from Tucson," William murmured. "Vernon wasn't lying about sending that telegram." "What do we do now?" Kate asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We walk," William replied grimly. "Stay low and follow me." They traveled through the night, keeping to the ridgelines where they could watch for pursuit while remaining hidden. The rugged terrain was difficult to navigate in darkness, and Kate's city-bred feet soon developed blisters inside her impractical boots. She said nothing of her discomfort, unwilling to slow their progress. Dawn found them exhausted but several miles from the arroyo, sheltered in a small cave formed by tumbled boulders. William insisted Kate rest while he kept watch, but she was too anxious for sleep. "They'll assume we're heading for Tucson," William said, thinking aloud. "We need to change direction." "But San Francisco," Kate began, "is still possible," William assured her, "but we'll need to take a different route, perhaps north to Prescott, then west to California." The journey would be longer and more arduous, but Kate nodded in agreement. The evidence she carried was too important to risk capture now, and the thought of returning to Vernon's control was unthinkable. They rested through the hottest part of the day, sharing the last of their water and rationing their remaining food. Without horses, their situation was precarious, but William's experience as a marshal proved invaluable. He found water in unlikely places and spotted game trails that offered easier passage through the rough country. As they walked, they talked more openly than before, the shared adversity breaking down the last barriers between them. Kate told William about her childhood in St. Louis, her father's work as a printer, and her mother's dreams of seeing her daughter marry well. William shared stories of growing up in Colorado, his complicated relationship with Elliot, and his decision to become a marshal after his father was killed by rustlers. "I wanted to make a difference," he explained as they picked their way across a rocky stream bed. "To ensure that other families wouldn't suffer as mine did." "And have you," Kate asked, "made a difference?" William considered this. "Sometimes, not always in the ways I expected." He glanced at her with a small smile. "Helping you escape Vernon feels more meaningful than many of the official duties I've performed." Kate felt warmth bloom in her chest at his words. "I'm glad our paths crossed then, despite the circumstances. As evening approached on their second day without horses, they spotted a small ranch in the distance. Thin spirals of smoke rose from a chimney, and the shapes of cattle were visible in a nearby pasture. "We could ask for help," Kate suggested. "Perhaps buy horses if they have any to spare." William nodded slowly. "It's risky, but we can't continue on foot much longer. You're exhausted and we're almost out of supplies." They approached the ranch cautiously as twilight deepened. A dog barked, announcing their presence before they reached the gate. The door of the modest adobe house opened and a man emerged, rifle in hand. "That's far enough," he called. "State your business." William raised his hands to show they were empty. "My name is William James. This is Miss Katherine Nichols. We've lost our horses and are in need of assistance." The man studied them suspiciously, the rifle not wavering. "You running from something? We don't want trouble here." Kate stepped forward. "We're trying to reach California," she said truthfully. "I have family there. Our horses were taken by a posse from Stein's Pass." The mention of Stein's Pass seemed to soften the man's expression. "Vernon Blackwell's territory," he said knowingly. "That man's got a reputation from here to the border." "We've had some disagreements with Mr. Blackwell," William admitted. The rancher finally lowered his rifle. "Any enemy of Blackwell's is a friend of mine. He tried to force me off this land last year." He gestured toward the house. "Come in. The wife just put supper on the table." Relief washed over Kate as they followed the rancher, who introduced himself as Thomas Miller, into the warm kitchen where his wife Sarah was laying out a simple but hearty meal. The Millers listened sympathetically to their edited version of events, nodding in understanding when William explained they needed to avoid Tucson. "Blackwell's got half the lawmen in the territory in his pocket," Thomas confirmed. "But not all of them. Judge Parker over in Fort Smith is honest, and he's been trying to clean up these parts. We're not looking to bring charges right now," William explained. "Just to get Miss Nichols safely to her family." Sarah Miller, a kind-faced woman with practical hands, insisted on tending to Kate's blistered feet and providing them with clean clothes from her own sparse wardrobe. The simple kindness nearly brought tears to Kate's eyes after days of fear and flight. "You can stay the night," Thomas offered. "I've got 2 horses I can spare, not much to look at, but they'll get you where you're going. Consider it my contribution to Vernon Blackwell's discomfort." That night, Kate slept in a real bed for the first time since leaving the saloon. Though the Millers' spare room was small and plainly furnished, it felt luxurious after nights on the hard ground. Sleep came quickly, her exhausted body surrendering to deep, dreamless rest. She awoke to the smell of coffee and bacon, and the sound of William's voice in conversation with Thomas in the kitchen. Dressing quickly in the clothes, Sarah had provided a simple skirt and blouse that were slightly too large but clean and whole. Kate joined them at the table. The men had been discussing routes to California, and Thomas had drawn a rough map showing trails that avoided major settlements where news of their flight might have spread. "If you follow the Gila River west," Thomas was saying, "you'll reach Yuma in about a week. From there, it's a straight shot to San Diego and then north to San Francisco by coastal steamer." "It's longer than going through Tucson," William acknowledged, "but safer." Kate studied the map, tracing the winding path with her finger. A week more of travel meant a week more with William, a prospect that filled her with conflicting emotions. She had grown to care for him deeply in their short time together, but what future could there be for a saloon girl and a U.S. Marshal? After breakfast, they prepared to depart. Sarah packed them ample provisions while Thomas saddled the promised horses sturdy ranch stock that lacked the refinement of William's bay gelding but would serve their purpose well. "There's something else," Thomas said as William checked the saddle girths. Word came yesterday that Vernon Blackwell was found dead near the Mexican border. William's hand stilled. Dead? How? Thomas shrugged. Shot, apparently. They're saying it was bandits, but rumors are flying that he crossed someone powerful. His saloon's already being fought over by his associates. Kate felt a complex mixture of emotions at the news relief that Vernon could never threaten her again, combined with a strange emptiness where her fear and hatred had resided for so long. Your brother? She asked William quietly when Thomas had moved away. William shook his head. Elliot has his faults, but he's not a back shooter. More likely Vernon crossed the wrong people in Mexico. As they prepared to mount up, Sarah pressed a small package into Kate's hands. A few things you might need, she explained. A woman shouldn't travel without essentials. Kate thanked her with a heartfelt embrace. The miller's kindness to strangers reinforced her belief that good people still existed in this harsh territory, people who helped others without expectation of reward. They set off westward, following Thomas's directions toward the Gila River. The terrain was challenging but beautiful. The desert landscape painted in shades of ochre and crimson beneath the vast blue sky. Kate found herself noticing details she'd missed during their frantic flight: the delicate blooms of desert flowers, the darting movement of lizards across sun-baked rocks, the majestic flight of hawks circling overhead. William rode beside her, occasionally pointing out landmarks or sharing knowledge of the land and its creatures. His presence had become a comfort Kate had never expected to find after years of guarding herself against men's attention at the saloon. That evening, they made camp beside a small spring, the horses grazing contentedly on the sparse vegetation while William built a fire. The routine they had established over their days together felt natural now, William hunting or preparing the campsite while Kate arranged their meager supplies and tended the fire. As they sat side by side watching the flames, William finally returned to the conversation that had been interrupted nights before. "Katherine," he began hesitantly, "I've been thinking about what happens when we reach San Francisco." Kate's heart quickened. "What about it?" William stared into the fire, uncharacteristically uncertain. "These past days, getting to know you has been—" He trailed off, then started again. "You're the most remarkable woman I've ever met." Kate smiled despite her nervousness. "Is that a compliment from a U.S. Marshal?" "It's a compliment from a man," William corrected, finally meeting her eyes. "A man who's discovered that his life felt incomplete without knowing it." The sincerity in his gaze took Kate's breath away. "William, I know it's sudden," he hurried on. "And you have plans, a new life waiting in San Francisco. I wouldn't ask you to change that. But perhaps when you're settled I could visit. Or write at least." Kate reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "I'd like that," she said softly. "Very much." William's face lit with hope. "Truly." Instead of answering, Kate leaned forward and pressed her lips to his, a gentle kiss that conveyed what words could not. William remained still for a heartbeat, then responded with tender passion, his hand coming up to cradle her face. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, William rested his forehead against hers. "I never expected to find you," he whispered. "Nor I you," Kate replied. "Especially not in Vernon Blackwell's saloon." The irony made them both smile. From the worst circumstances had come the greatest blessing, a connection neither had anticipated, but both now treasured. The remaining days of their journey passed in a glow of deepening affection. They still faced hardships, a brief but violent thunderstorm that soaked them to the skin, a tense encounter with a band of Apache hunters who ultimately allowed them passage after William offered their remaining tobacco in trade, A day without water when the expected creek proved dry, but these challenges seemed less daunting when faced together. As they traveled, they spoke more openly of the future. William explained his position as a deputy U.S. Marshal was not permanently tied to New Mexico territory. He could request a transfer to California if given sufficient reason. The San Francisco office always needs good men, he noted casually, though the implication was clear. Kate spoke of her cousin's boarding house and the dressmaking position awaiting her. Margaret mentioned the shop serves some of the wealthiest families in the city, she explained. It could be a real opportunity to build a respectable career. The word respectable hung between them, briefly a reminder of the life Kate was leaving behind and the social obstacles they might face if their relationship continued. William seemed to understand her unspoken concern. "Your past at the saloon doesn't define you," he said firmly. "Anyone who matters will see you as I do, strong, intelligent, and extraordinarily brave." His faith in her worth brought tears to Kate's eyes. After years of being valued only for her appearance and ability to serve drinks with a smile, William's recognition of her true character was a precious gift. They reached Yuma 7 days after leaving the Miller's ranch, the frontier settlement a welcome sight after their wilderness journey. Though still wary of official attention, they risked staying at a small hotel, reveling in the luxury of proper baths and clean beds. The stagecoach to San Diego departed the following morning. As they secured their tickets, William noticed a bulletin board with wanted posters outside the sheriff's office. Elliot's face stared back at them. The reward for his capture now increased to $1,000. "He helped us," Kate said quietly, noting William's troubled expression. "I know," William replied, "and I'm grateful. But he's made his choices." The journey to San Diego passed without incident, the stagecoach carrying them across the final stretches of desert and into the coastal regions of California. The first sight of the Pacific Ocean stole Kate's breath, an endless expanse of blue stretching to the horizon, more vast than anything she had imagined during her landlocked life. In San Diego, they booked passage on a coastal steamer bound for San Francisco. The 2-day voyage offered a welcome respite from the rigors of overland travel, though Kate discovered an unexpected susceptibility to seasickness that kept her confined to their small cabin for much of the first day. William tended to her with gentle concern, bringing cool cloths for her forehead and coaxing her to sip water when she could manage it. His attentiveness touched Kate deeply, another demonstration of his character that reinforced her growing feelings. As they approached San Francisco Bay on the second day, Kate joined William on deck, her queasiness forgotten in the excitement of arrival. The fog-shrouded city emerged gradually from the mist, buildings climbing the famous hills, the bustling waterfront alive with activity. "It's beautiful," Kate breathed, clutching William's arm as they stood at the railing. "Yes, it is," William agreed, though his gaze was fixed on her face rather than the city before them. Margaret Nichols was waiting at the dock, a tall, practical-looking woman whose serious expression melted into joy when she spotted Kate. The cousins embraced warmly, years of separation forgotten in the moment of reunion. "You're so thin," Margaret exclaimed, holding Kate at arm's length to examine her. "But you look well otherwise. The journey wasn't too difficult. It had its challenges," Kate admitted with a glance at William. "Margaret, this is William James. He helped me leave Stein's Pass." Margaret's shrewd gaze assessed William thoroughly before she extended her hand. "Then, I owe you my thanks, Mr. James. I've been trying to convince Katherine to leave that place for over a year." William shook her hand. "The pleasure was mine, Miss Nichols. Your cousin is an extraordinary woman." Something in his tone made Margaret's eyebrows rise slightly, but she made no comment beyond inviting William to join them for dinner at the boarding house. The women's respectable employment boarding house occupied a narrow three-story building on a quiet street removed from the more raucous areas of the city. Inside, it was clean and modestly furnished, with a large dining room on the ground floor where about 20 young women took their meals together. Margaret introduced Kate to the residents' shop girls, secretaries, seamstresses, and teachers, all working to support themselves respectably in the city. The women welcomed Kate warmly, curious about her journey and her plans. William observed the scene from a polite distance, aware that his presence in this female domain was unusual. When Kate glanced his way, however, she found his eyes on her, his expression one of quiet pride and something deeper that made her heart flutter. After dinner, Margaret tactfully provided them with a few moments of privacy in the small front parlor while she attended to household matters. "Your cousin seems wonderful," William said. "You'll be well looked after here." Kate nodded, suddenly finding it difficult to speak past the lump in her throat. Their journey was truly ending, and despite their discussions of the future, uncertainty loomed large. "The dressmaking shop is just 2 streets over," she managed. "Margaret says Mrs. Chen is a fair employer who doesn't overwork her girls." "That's good," William replied, equally awkward. "I should report to the marshal's office tomorrow, let them know what happened with Vernon and discuss my options." They stood in silence, the weight of imminent separation heavy between them. Then William reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object. "I want you to have this," he said, pressing it into her palm. Kate looked down at a simple silver ring with a small turquoise stone. "William." "It was my mother's," he explained. "Not an engagement ring unless you want it to be." He smiled self-consciously. "It's too soon for that, I know. But I wanted you to have something to remind you of me while we figure things out." Kate closed her fingers around the ring, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "I don't need a reminder," she said softly, "but I'll treasure it all the same." William's hand cupped her cheek. "I'll come tomorrow if I may. Perhaps we could see some of the city together." "I'd like that," Kate whispered. Their parting kiss was tender yet filled with promise, not an ending but a beginning. As Kate watched William walk down the street, his tall figure gradually disappearing into the evening fog, she felt not loss but anticipation. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of new experiences. Kate began work at Mrs. Chen's dressmaking shop, her natural skill with a needle quickly earning her employer's approval. The diverse clientele of wealthy matrons and young society women provided fascinating glimpses into a world Kate had never imagined entering. True to his word, William visited frequently. He had secured a position with the U.S. Marshal's office in San Francisco, his experience and recommendations earning him a place despite his relative youth. On his days off, he showed Kate the city from the bustling markets of Chinatown to the elegant homes of Nob Hill, the foggy beaches of the Pacific to the vibrant theaters downtown. Their courtship progressed with a blend of caution and deepening affection. William was unfailingly respectful of Kate's new position and the rules of Margaret's boarding house, which prohibited gentlemen callers after 7 in the evening and required all meetings to take place in public or chaperoned settings. 3 months after their arrival in San Francisco, on a clear autumn day with the bay sparkling beneath a rare cloudless sky, William took Kate on a picnic to the hills overlooking the city. As they sat on a blanket sharing cold chicken and fresh bread, William suddenly grew serious. "I received news yesterday," he said. "About Elliot." Kate set down her glass of lemonade. "What happened?" He was captured near Tucson, William replied, his expression conflicted. Not by lawmen, by associates of Vernon Blackwell seeking revenge. Is he? Kate couldn't finish the question. William shook his head. He escaped, apparently, left 2 men dead in the process. He sighed heavily. The reward for his capture has doubled. Kate touched his hand gently. I'm sorry, William. I know how difficult this is for you. William turned his hand to clasp hers. The marshal's office wants me to lead the pursuit. They think I have insights into his movements that other lawmen lack. Will you go? Kate asked, her heart sinking at the thought of his departure. William met her eyes steadily. No, I've declined the assignment. I told them my place is here now. Relief flooded through Kate, followed immediately by concern. Won't that affect your position? Perhaps, William acknowledged. But some choices are more important than career advancement. He squeezed her hand. You're more important, Katherine. The simple declaration held such conviction that Kate felt tears prick her eyes. William. He shifted to face her fully, still holding her hand. I had a speech prepared, he said with a nervous laugh. But now I find I can't remember a word of it. Kate smiled encouragingly. Perhaps just speak from your heart. William nodded, taking a deep breath. Katherine Nichols, these past months have been the happiest of my life. Getting to know you, your strength, your kindness, your determination has changed me in ways I never expected. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. I know we agreed to take things slowly, but my feelings for you grow stronger each day. I cannot imagine my future without you in it. He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold ring set with a small diamond that caught the sunlight. Will you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife? Joy bubbled up within Kate, bright and effervescent. Yes, she said simply, her smile radiant. Yes, I will marry you, William James. William's face lit with happiness as he slipped the ring onto her finger beside his mother's turquoise band. Then he gathered her in his arms, his kiss conveying all the love and promise that words could not express. Their wedding took place 6 weeks later in the small chapel near Margaret's boarding house. Kate wore a gown of ivory silk she had made herself, embellished with delicate embroidery that had impressed even Mrs. Chen. William, handsome in his best suit, waited at the altar with an expression of wonder as Kate walked toward him on Margaret's arm. The ceremony was simple but deeply meaningful, attended by Margaret, the women from the boarding house, William's colleagues from the marshal's office, and a few friends they had made in the city. As they exchanged vows, Kate thought back to that pivotal moment in the Iron Horse Saloon, when William had first come to her defense. How impossible this day would have seemed then. Their honeymoon was a week at a small cottage on the coast north of the city, where they walked on windswept beaches, explored tide pools, and discovered the profound joy of building a life together. Their return to San Francisco brought the excitement of establishing their first home, a modest but comfortable apartment near both the marshal's office and Mrs. Chen's shop, where Kate continued to work, now specializing in bridal gowns. Life settled into a pleasant rhythm as months turned to years. William earned promotions within the marshal's service, his integrity and dedication recognized by his superiors. Kate's reputation as a skilled seamstress grew, eventually allowing her to open her own small shop catering to brides from across the social spectrum. News of Elliot reached them, occasionally sightings in Mexico, rumors of robberies in Colorado, whispers of a new identity in Canada. William maintained a discreet network of contacts who kept him informed of his brother's movements, though he never again pursued him officially. 3 years after their wedding, their happiness expanded with the birth of their son, Thomas Elliot James, named for the rancher who had helped them, and for William's brother a gesture of hope that family bonds might someday heal. Kate proved to be a natural mother, balancing her work with the joys and challenges of parenthood. While William embraced fatherhood with the same gentle strength he brought to all aspects of life. Little Thomas was joined 2 years later by his sister, Sarah Margaret, completing their family and bringing new dimensions of love and laughter to their home. On the evening of their 5th wedding anniversary, after the children were asleep, William and Kate sat together on the small balcony of their apartment, watching the lights of the city flicker to life as dusk deepened. William had given Kate a delicate gold locket containing miniature portraits of their children, while Kate had presented him with a fine pocket watch engraved with their wedding date. "Are you happy, Katherine?" William asked, his arm around her shoulders as she leaned against him. Kate looked up at him, her expression serene. "Completely," she replied. "Though sometimes I still can't believe this is my life, that Vernon's saloon and those years of servitude weren't just a bad dream." William's arm tightened protectively. "They made you who you are. Your strength was forged there, even as it tried to break you." Kate nodded thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about that recently, about other women who might be trapped as I was." "What are you considering?" William asked, knowing his wife's determination when she set her mind to something. "Margaret and I have been discussing expanding the boarding house concept," Kate explained. "Creating a place specifically for women escaping difficult circumstances, not just saloon girls, but any woman needing a fresh start. A place with fair work, education opportunities, and support." William smiled, pride evident in his expression. "It sounds wonderful, and entirely like you to turn your own hardships into help for others." "Would you support such a venture?" Kate asked, though she already knew the answer. "With everything I have," William assured her. "Your compassion is one of the many reasons I love you more each day." Kate leaned up to kiss him, gratitude for their shared life filling her heart. From the darkest circumstances had come the greatest light, a truth she hoped to share with other women still waiting for their chance at freedom. As night fell over San Francisco, Kate James, once a trapped saloon girl in a dusty border town, rested in the arms of the man who had helped her claim her freedom. Their journey had begun with a confrontation in a saloon and a desperate escape, but it had transformed into a life rich with purpose, love, and the quiet joy of building something meaningful together. For Kate and William, that was the greatest adventure of all.